Many thanks for choosing us. Now, President Akufo-Addo says it will be unfair for the world to ask Africa to abandon the exploitation of the abundant natural resources needed to finance development and help cope better with the threat of climate change at the time when many nations on the continent have just discovered them. President Akufo-Addo is leading Ghana's delegation to the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of Parties, COP26, which opened in Glasgow, Scotland yesterday, delivering a statement on Ghana's position on climate change, as well as measures put in place to combat the threat it poses. President Akufo-Addo said Ghana acknowledges the importance and effects of climate change and the urgent need to combat it, but also is mindful of the importance of protecting our development, adding a balance must be struck and maintained between our social, economic, and environmental imperatives. Listen.
Agriculture, water, energy, and the extraction of mineral resources are essential drivers of developments in our countries, but at the same time are characteristically sensitive to changing climate. The African Development Bank has stated that the continent will need some $3 trillion United States dollars in mitigation and adaptation by 2030 to enable us implement our nationally determined contributions. The obvious question arises is how do we in Africa finance these commitments, especially as our socio-economic development continues, unfortunately, to be low. The development and industrialization of the wealthy nations of today were also hinged on the exploitation of their natural resources. This development came at the expense of pollution and the emission of greenhouse gases. Even today, the Western world is responsible for 76% of carbon emissions. Ghana acknowledges the importance and effects of climate change and the urgent need to combat it, and we acknowledge equally the importance of protecting our development. We believe that a balance must be struck and maintained between our social, economic, and environmental imperatives. We're naturally very disappointed by the failure of the wealthy nations to honor their commitments of making available $100 billion annually to the poorer countries to assist us in the fight against climate change, and by the unavailability of the technology transfer that will help us find sustainable ways of charting a path out of this existential crisis. Those same nations are, however, insisting that we abandon the opportunity for rapid development of our economies. That would be tantamount to enshrining in the global community inequality of the highest order, a totally unacceptable conclusion. We must find a solution that is equitable and fair, a solution that levels the playing field, a solution that recognizes the historical imbalances between the high emitters and low emitters. Ghana therefore supports the call for debt for climate swaps, which will address a multitude of issues in one fell swoop.
Among the President's delegation is Minister of Energy, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh. He tells JoyNews Ghana has a solid testimony on measures taken to mitigate the effects of climate change, especially in the energy sector.
Established the JBK committee as far back as 2001, 2002. It was to give us a roadmap to nuclear. They gave their report in probably 2008, and all governments have subsequently been following. Now Ghana has got to, the President has declared publicly that we are going nuclear. And today the President had a meeting with the Director General of IEAE to congratulate the President on Ghana being one of the first countries going through the hoops and loops of the difficult access point of IEA. And Ghana has got into, we said, documents around the preferred countries. We have selected 4 sites in the country that potentially we can have a nuclear power plant in Ghana. We are looking for a country to partner with to develop our nuclear. And we want nuclear for base loads. We want nuclear for base loads, solid industrialization purpose. That's where we are going. And I think with the assurances that we got from today from IAEA to support Ghana all along the way, it will come to pass. Ghana would also be one of the first countries in Africa to adopt nuclear technology. I think we will eventually get there for nuclear power generation. Also, I can tell you that in Black Africa, Ghana is probably the second country in the list of electricity access. We have achieved about 86.23 as we speak, where universal access is declared at 90 or above. The President's commitment is to have universal access at least by 2024. What does it mean? To move from 86 to 90 is the most difficult terrain that we have. It's easier to move from 0 to 80 than move from 86 to 90. Why? Because the areas left are the remote and hard and difficult areas to reach, like islands, about 300 or 400 islands we have on the Volta Lake. There are human beings living there who also desire the goodness of life. So what we are doing is what we call off-grid battery-supported deployment, where we put solar panels, we put the batteries there where it supplies those community. We've worked with Switzerland to do the first 5 pilots. We've already put on tender for another 20. And we are seeking support that we can offset with carbon credits going forward to electrify all those areas and help us get to our commitment.
Also among Ghana's delegation is Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, Papoose Nkrumah, has also been sharing his thoughts on climate change.
Globally, there's supposed to be action to minimize the carbon emissions so that we slow down the change in climate to save the global environment for future generations, hence COP26. And when it comes to Africa, Ghana is considered to be one of the leading and most progressive nations when it comes to tackling climate change. Globally, as we call for even stop production of vehicles that use fossil fuels, diesel, petrol. They're talking about electric energy, solar power generated energy, and even now nuclear power generation energy. And indeed, Ghana will shortly, probably in the next few months, there will be an announcement that is going to be the center for the training of nuclear scientists to work against cancer, etc., in certain parts of Africa. So for us, it's very, very, very important. The Commonwealth has a group of nations combating climate change. Bangladesh sponsored an award, which they're going to start next year, June, hopefully, at the Common Sense of Government meeting in Kigali. Ghana is part of it, and the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee delivered a statement on behalf of Ghana. In his absence, I delivered the statement on his behalf. So generally, this is a major conference for the world and for Ghana. And Ghana is very, very, very much representation. The Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation is the coordinating ministry. You have the EPA, you have the Ministry of Energy, you have the Ministry of Lands and Forestry, all right? So this is a major event, and the Ghanaian representation in terms of delegation is probably one of the highest in Africa.
So let's cross over to Glasgow, where my colleague Sekwan Boateng, monitoring events for us, said how are other leaders at this event receiving our President Akufo-Addo's message that it will be unfair for the already nations to the nations who've already made it to tell Africa to not to exploit its mineral resources in the bid to deal with climate change.
Well, so that meeting wasn't open to a number of people. He had the world leaders in there and he spoke to them. And he said it as he was supposed to say on behalf of Africa that we appear to be losing out. You are not providing us the finance that we need to fund and help deal with the plight or the negative effect of climate change. And you are telling us to stop exploiting the natural resources God gave us to, as it were, use it to help us boost our finances to deal with this. So it's an issue, people are talking about it, and I'm going to have this discussion, and I'm so grateful. I have with me here Honorable Ebenezer Tailabi, and I have also the MP for Kwada. So I think you are the, for your curriculum, I think you are the chairman of the Environment, Science and Technology Committee in Parliament. And I also have with me here Mr. Samuel Doche. He is one of the negotiators for Ghana, and he is doing that at the finance level. So let me start from you, Honorable MP for Oferiko. You have been in a number of these meetings, and you have been hearing the negotiators of the various countries. What are we getting from Ghana to, what are we getting from here to Ghana?
What we negotiate for. I mean, this kind of forum is a game of interest. Developed countries have their own agenda. They want climate change, to improve. Mm-hmm. At the same time, their commitments to financing the programs have not been forthcoming. Mm. Developing countries like Ghana, our interest is to be able to get enough financing of our climate programs so that the contributions that we can make can also go on. Mm. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where the monies or the finances that we need as a developing economy is not forthcoming, yet the exigencies of the time require that we, as the global world, has to cut down our carbon emissions. And even developing countries that we are not contributing a lot as far as emissions is concerned are also called upon to also, as it were, cut down on our emissions.
And when I heard the president speak, I got the inclination that perhaps maybe African leaders met and they had to tell him to say this on their behalf, because they are telling us, for example, we are into oil production. By the grace of God, we are getting the commercial quantities, and now the world is pushing that we go hydro. The vehicles they are using here, when I came, I've seen that most of them are powered electric vehicles. So, and our economy is based on oil. And if we do that, what happens to us? And imagine Nigeria, this is happening in Nigeria, so they cannot sell their oil, or no Western country will be willing to take their oil because now they are using hydro. What becomes of us? And how are we negotiating well so that we don't even get there?
Yeah, that is exactly what the president said, and that's exactly why we all are here. So that the various negotiation meetings ongoing, we are there to press home that fact that look, if you guys want us to cut down the emissions or advance programs that will, as it will, reduce our dependence on oil and fossil fuel, then you have already taken advantage of that and then exploited it, and now you are developed. So let us all share the burden of what we have. That's exactly what the president said.
And he said it was unfair.
Exactly, because why would it be? We as a developing country, we are on the edge of developing our industry. Yeah. And now you are telling us that, look, don't exploit
one speaking, the earpiece is not picking the sound well. So if you can fix that for us, so because we cannot hear the MP well.
Yeah, so if we stop exploiting our natural resources, then what it means is that we will be on the losing side. And so that is exactly what the president has said, and I believe that is what the Ghanaian delegation, and for that matter, the G77 and African Parliament have largely said.
Okay, now let's go to your colleague, the Honorable MP Ebenezer Telabi, and you are also part of this delegation here. And first of all, what's your reaction to the president's statement this morning?
Said the sound is bad. All right, so Seth Kwame Boateng connecting live from Glasgow with excerpts of what the president has been saying. So Seth, is refreshing to hear from our own members of parliament and members in government telling us what we gain and what we stand to gain from this conference that the president is attending, also explaining why the president made that statement. Of course, because he made the categorical statement of we recognizing the devastating effects of climate change and also acknowledging the importance of development in our part of the world. He says we need to strike a balance. I mean, how do other leaders suggest we can strike this balance, Seth?
No, but you have been in those meetings and she's asking, the president said we need a balance. You cannot tell us to stop what we are doing to help us develop. And but you have already developed. So how do we strike that balance? In that meetings that you attended, have you discussed this?
Well, the fact still remains that the developed countries have made the pledges towards, mitigation and adaptation, and then which includes taking care of already, the devastating effect of the climate change already, and then we want to also find a way of stopping it. But the fact is, as the president said, we are a developing country. We have just gotten some. You people have already developed, and therefore, if you want us to stop, then come to the table with some support. You know, come tell us what you can do for us.
And the president said that.
And see, the interesting thing is that yes, some promises have been made, but the revelation this morning was that most of the pledges are now being converted into loans.
Oh, really?
Now, so can you imagine if I go for loan to reclaim, land in the what do you call it? My working region, the mining site or whatever. Who pays for it? Who pays for it? How do we pay for it? You understand? So these are some of the arguments. And, we are asking that they come properly. Again, the issue of the definition of climate finance is even a problem now. You understand? So we need to really, up our game, in our negotiations. They need to come clear. They are a little bit defensive, and we also need to be blunt, be open, and be.
And are we being blunt?
Yeah, we are. We are. In fact, this morning, as I said, I enjoyed the discussions, and all the African countries. All the African countries. And in fact, the president spoke the mind of the African countries. I'm sure maybe there was a meeting, where they are. But you see, the fact is that the problems are the same. The problems are the same. You go to Ivory Coast, you go to Senegal, they just discovered the oil and gas. We come to Gabon, we are now developing. And we need to also,
enjoy those.
Not necessarily, but let's develop. Let's also develop. They have, on the back of that, develop the Asian tigers. The Middle East. They build their oil to grow their countries. America see, what about us? What are they doing for us? What do they do? On the back of the promises that are not forthcoming. And the fact that today, what we hear, what they understand is that most of these grants are being converted into loans. Who pays for the loan?
That's quite a serious thing. And Aisha, I have also with me here Samuel Doche. He is one of the negotiators doing that for us when it comes to finance. So you have also been in those meetings. How well are we negotiating? And what have we gotten so far, or nothing yet?
Thank you very much. I think, thank you. viewers from Ghana. Yeah, Ghana has been one of the key countries in Africa that has taken part in this negotiation for the past 26 years. And I think when it comes to finance, one of the things that has happened is that the developed countries, though promising and pledging, have reneged on that promise. In 2009, in Copenhagen, they promised mobilizing about 100 billion per year by 2020 in order for developing countries to meet their adaptation and mitigation needs. But that has not been met. So this morning, I made a case at a contact group meeting that the developed countries should come out clearly with a roadmap as to how they are going to convince the developing countries in mobilizing the 100 billion. Because as we speak now, we are not sure of how much they have mobilized since 2009. Now, let me also add that, yeah, the African group and the G77 plus China and the least developed countries has also made a case that this climate financing is an issue that we need resources, financial resources. But if you look at what we have now in terms of long-term financing for climate actions in Africa, there is no clear definition of what is climate finance. And I believe that by the time we leave here, we have to get a clear language as to what is climate finance and how developed countries are going to ensure that what they promised or pledged in 2009 is met, so that all the actions that we have developed as a country, for example, Ghana, we have produced 47 national actions, which includes mitigation and adaptation. We did about $9.3 to $15 billion in order to do that from 2020 to 2030. Wow. That is where we are. 9 years more. 9 years more. So we are here to ensure that we have a clear language as to what is climate finance, so that we don't accept developed countries using their overseas development assistance as climate finance as promised by the convention. Let me also add that under the convention, we have the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility. Those are multilateral funds. What is happening now is that these funds are moving away from the grant spirit of the convention into a loan and equity, which to some of us, and that wasn't what we think that initially agreed. Yes, we think that it is a disappointment on the part of developed countries when it comes to climate finance.
But do we have a choice? From where we are, do we have a choice? What can we also do? Because I know when they sneeze, you know what happens to the rest of the world. So what can we do from a little corner, small corner?
Yeah, the choice we have is to ensure that we put up our national interests. The choice we have to ensure that when the draft tests are being developed, we have to be part of the development of the draft test. Because, you know, in this negotiation, sometimes what happens is that meetings are scheduled at all times that developing countries will find it a little bit difficult to participate in those meetings. So we have to be
deliberate, right?
Yes, it's a deliberate action that is part of the negotiation skills, strategies. So we have to ensure that we are alive to the task and ensure that whenever the meetings are being scheduled, we are available to ensure that any test that is going to be developed, our interest is represented in those tests.
And earlier, when we spoke, you painted a picture that really shocked me. How we are here thinking we have oil in commercial quantities, but how very soon that is not going to be of any significance use to the world. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, let me link that to what the president said this morning. You know, there is this term that we have, what we call the net zero by 2050. What it means is that the developed countries are saying that, well, we have done our part. Now, what is happening is that in order for us to reach the 1.5 degree target by 2030, then developing countries should keep their natural resources underground. But the issue is that our president made a very definite statement, which I will associate myself with. What it means is that we should not be calling for only adaptation issues, but rather, in order for us to industrialize, we need to mitigate. And the president's call is for Africa to industrialize, and that industrialization means the use of the natural resources, which are being referred to as stranded assets. So I think the president, knowing who he is, understanding the spirit of the convention, was very clear in his mind that Africa needs to take mitigation action seriously.
And,
so that
definitely, Seth Kwamboateng, I think the president hit it right there for us, making it point blank to the developed world that we understand that there's a problem with climate change, but definitely we are not going to halt our development because you used your resources to develop. And if you look at the emission, we come nowhere near to the developed nation. So there's no need telling Africa to stop exploiting our natural resources. Seth Kwamboateng is our man in Glasgow monitoring this for us. What other business is on the agenda for the president, Seth?
After that world leaders meeting in the morning where he spoke, the president also had to attend another function where he met other leaders and they spoke about land use and our forest reserves. There he told the world that in June he embarked on this ambitious plan to plant 500 trees, but 5 million trees, but he can report to the world that we went up by 2 million. So we planted 7 million instead of the 5 million. And he's assuring the world that next year, 2022, Ghana is going to plant 20 million trees. And he said that they have even mobilization is underway, meaning we are prepared for that. And he told them that it's one of the ways that, or one of the many measures that Ghana is putting in place to ensure that we meet the target set for the world, that by 2030, we should have half emission by 2030. So this is one of the many things that Ghana is doing. And very soon, the president will be visiting the stands of Ghana to interact with the team that came here. Ghana has a stand, and as you can see at the background, the president will soon be visiting. So everybody is here waiting to meet the first president and interact with him. He has a number of aside meetings, I understand, he's been attending, and it's not all the meetings that we have the privilege to see what is transpiring, but sure, we're going to get reports and report to us. Aisha, before you go, let me quickly do this interaction with the executive chair of the Environmental Protection Agency, Honorable Dr. Kokofu, Harry Kokofu. So, Honorable, in the morning we spoke, and you told me about, you gave me a hint about what the president is going to say. After listening to the president and the points he made, do you think we stand at a better chance of getting better negotiation from here, or is something that is going to affect us going forward?
That is the anticipation. And like I said in the morning, our president, Nana Akufo-Addo, is keen in seeing to the financing of the various projects that will lead to mitigation and adaptation of the climate change situation. And I was so glad, my heart was gladdened when he said that I'm not going to virtually abandon nor compromise on our developmental agenda, exploitation of natural resources, just in the name of climate change. And we have got to seek a balance in it so that we will surely go ahead with our developmental programs. These are the defining means to mitigate the emissions and thereby declining climate change effects. Okay. So, yes, we are in it. Our negotiators have all the points. We are relying heavily on our nationally determined contributions, and we're looking at $13.5 to $16 billion in financing all these climate change.
Is it something you hope for? You hope to get that money from them?
Well, it is not getting it from anybody. What we're looking at is local mobilization, and then also contribution from the international sector. I mean, They are the polluters. They contribute to
about 76%
of the pollution and the effects, and we are the most vulnerable. We are bearing the brunt. Private, public initiative sector fund mobilization. We are also expecting that these heavily emitting countries will redeem their pledge of $100 billion as deposits and annually incremental to that effect.
Until they redeem this pledge.
Seth Kwamboateng connecting from Glasgow, and he's been speaking with participants of this conference, and they've been telling us what the statement made by our own president Akufo-Addo means to actually ending or limiting emissions from developed countries and from us ourselves, and also continuing with our development. There's a conversation we're going to be having to make sense of what has transpired there. But let's understand the gravity of the issue we're dealing with. What does the COP26 really mean? It just stands for it's a meeting where leadership from the World Bank Group will boost efforts to ramp up support for green, resilient and inclusive recovery and support to low carbon transitions that put people at the center. And so this is the center of the issues the president has been raising this morning when he delivered the address. Let's look at the emissions from Ghana, because we emit low, but we are the ones who suffer the most from the effects of climate change. And the last one we did was in 2018. If you check the emission from Ghana, it's just over 16,000. Compare it to 2008. 2007, 2008, and this 2009. I want to make a comparison with 2008, and then you will realize that from that point, from 2008 to 2018, 10 years interval, with our emission has grown, but of course it's nothing comparable to the developed nations. Look at this, from over 8,000 to 16,000. I'll show you what it means to be a developed country and the reason why they should not stop us from developing our own natural resources because we want to stop emission, because they emit more. These are the countries who emit carbon, who do industrialization, and therefore they emit a lot of carbon for us. The lighter the blue, the lower emission. The deeper the blue, that means that they're emitting high carbon dioxide. Let me start from here. You see Australia. Australia just emits how much? How many in kilotons is 380, over 386. Then you come to Russia, is 1 million. Let me look at a country like Brazil, 427. So you realize that if you come to Africa, you just take South Africa, which emits 433. And then from South Africa, you go to Nigeria, which emits 130,000. So you look at Africa and you go to the Western world and you realize that Africa emits less carbon compared to them. Now look at China. This is China for you. 10 million, over 10 million. If you look at China, that's what they emit through industrialization and all the stuff they do for development in their area. Then you come to the US. This is over 4 million. You come here, over 4 million. Both combined gives you about 10 million, close to China's emission. So if you look at these big countries, that's the point that President Akufo-Addo is making, that they cannot use their own resources to develop and now come to tell us that we should stop exploiting our natural resources because they want to stop carbon dioxide emission. In essence, you are the ones who emit more carbon dioxide. So why are you now coming to tell Africans to stop exploiting? So this is a conversation we need to have, because definitely we understand the fact that the effects of climate change is not something we all want to it's not pleasant. So definitely it is a conversation we need to have. But there's also the issue about striking a balance. And President Akufo-Addo made that point this morning. So I want us to have that conversation and make these suggestions at the Climate Change Summit work. Professor Chris Gordon is director of the Institute of Environment and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana. He joins us via Zoom. Prof, I'm grateful for your time and patience.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And the first thing I would like to correct is that I was the former director.
All right.
You can say the founding director.
Great.
I'm now retired and on contract. You usually do not take positions in the University of Ghana.
Great. So at a time that African leaders are bothered about emitting less carbon, yet worse hit by the effects of climate change, and now being told not to exploit its natural resources, there's only one question that comes to mind. Is Africa at a disadvantage in the push for the climate agenda?
Africa is always at a disadvantage. You can take that as a given. The fact is that all the points made by the president are valid. The impact on sustainable development goals, the fact that we have not emitted, but you're going to bear the brunt of climate change. The amount needed was 3 trillion, but even that 3 trillion is not that much. Remember, it's up to 2030. If you work out the numbers, it comes to around less than 3 cedis per person in Africa per day. Basically, the transport between Medina and 37 military hospital. So even that 3 trillion that you're talking about, when you break it down, is not that much. But we need to unpack some of the issues that have been raised by the people who have been speaking on this program. And I think when you conflate issues of climate finance with impacts of climate change and national development, you may end up in a corner which you cannot get out of. The president was very clear, and he actually echoed the point made by in our national climate change documentation, that is the policy and the master plan, that Ghana will not stop its development because of climate change. So we have a situation where we are looking for what is known as climate compatible development. That is development that includes both mitigation and adaptation, development that is low carbon and also climate resilient. Now, when you look at these things, you then realize that climate change and our response is no longer a problem. It is no longer an issue. It is rather an opportunity. Much has been said by some of your previous speakers is that the Western countries industrialized, caused the problem, and then as a result of the problem, were in a situation where they now want to stop us from developing. But the fact is, when you look at some of the richest countries per capita, they do not have an industrial base. They have a service economy. So what I'm saying is that we do not have to make the mistakes of the industrial countries in going through that industrialized, high polluting. We can leapfrog. And the president made that point about the use of technology. So with that technology that is available, we can avoid many of the problems that have caused the other countries to emit. Now, it's only recently in the last 20 years or so 25 years, that Ghana has moved from being a net sink to climate change to being to carbon dioxide, to becoming an emitter. And this is purely as a result, not of industrialization, but as a result of cutting our forests. So when we say that the Western countries say we should not exploit our resources, I think we have to look at that very carefully. We do not know the value of those resources to the generations yet unborn. And the president made a comment to this effect about the legacy of future generations. So we do not know the value of oil in 50 years. Maybe they find something else. But I'd like to, I don't know how much time you have, but I would like to wind up by raising 4 points that we need to consider. One is that we need to increase climate literacy in Africa and in Ghana as a whole. And to that regard, I'm organizing a meeting on the 4th for media to talk about COP26, those of us who stayed at home. So we'll discuss COP, what it means, how to report on COP. We also need to build capacity for Ghana and Africa to have a voice at the table. Because many a time we do not have a voice. The comment was made that meetings sometimes go on and they schedule a meeting at 2 a.m. The Chinese delegation is 200. You have some people sleeping in the day to make sure they can attend the meetings at night. How many negotiators do we have who are willing to wake up to do that? And we also need to develop a holistic, systemic, and sector-wide approach to climate. You cannot deal with issues of charcoal burning without looking at the impact on women's health. You cannot look at infrastructure that is built and not climate-proofed and look at the issues of landslides and floods. We need to look at this all together. And the last thing that I would like to point out is that there are many, many little projects looking at adaptation, mitigation in Ghana. We need to scale it up. I mean, when we say we're going to plant 20 million trees, that is not enough. It's not enough at all. And we can plant, if other countries have planted 1.5 billion trees in a day, we can do the same. So I'm very glad to hear the statements that the president has made. It reflects what we have in our climate change policy, in our master plan, that we will not sacrifice development just to follow what Western countries want to do in terms of climate. But the fact is that if we do not do our little bit, we do not know where the tipping point will be. And as we don't have the resilience, maybe then the floods, the sea erosion, the heat waves, where they can manage to contain, because they have the money and resources, will then hit us even more. So we need to unpack the issues properly. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm happy you addressed the issue of balance nicely by talking about burning charcoal and also talking about its effects on the human beings that would have to encounter it. But again, there's this issue of moving to hydro to power most of our vehicles and what have you. And you know that Africa is now discovering oil and all of that. So people are worried about this phenomenon. What does this mean for Africa, especially?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned hydro, because for many years, hydro was the major contributor to the energy mix in Ghana. But one of the impacts of climate change is that it is going to impact the viability and performance of our hydro dams. So it is not something that we can bank on just like that. I would say that we should go into the renewables as a totality. We have places that are very suitable for wind, but we also have large expanses of land and even the Volta Lake, where we can use.
All right, so Professor Chris Gordon is coming. Is he back? All right, so he's been making a very important point. We'll try and get him back to complete that point. But I have Dr. Nana Ba-Redo, who is an environmentalist. He's a member of Board of Advisors of the NGO Earth Rights. All right, so Prof. Chris Gordon is back. Prof, you were making that important point.
Yes, what I was saying, can you hear me? Yes, good.
Yes.
What I was saying is that we need to look beyond hydro. We need to look at the energy mix in terms of wind and solar. But perhaps the most important is that we have not dealt with the issue of energy conservation effectively. So we have many cases of wastage of the little power that is available. We do not value the power because we are actually not paying the true amount for the power. Power is subsidized, but we know from past experience, once you try to transfer the true cost of power to the consumer, it causes a lot of issues and problems. So what I'm suggesting is that let us look at all the options and look at the cost benefit of the different options and look at the long-term costs of those options. The nuclear option is valid, but then there are major problems downstream, 20, 30 years on the disposal of nuclear waste. We need to look at things in its totality. So, but again, looking at things in its totality, when you look at the energy mix in Ghana, the largest is actually biomass. That is firewood and charcoal. And this has impact on land use, deforestation, particulates in the air, health of women, even the mental acuity of children whose brains are impacted by particles of PM 2.5 entering their brains. So why can't we find a better way to solve this issue of energy for the domestic use? The gas is something that has been proposed, but we have people who are telling potential users of how dangerous gas is. We have the people in the transport sector who can hijack all the gas so there's nothing left for the domestic. So this is why I'm saying you need to have a holistic solution to problem of energy, of climate change, and of development.
And hopefully we may get solutions from this conference that is being attended by our own president and other leaders. I'm grateful for your time. Professor Chris Gordon is former director of Institute of Environment and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana. Let me also come to you. Our environmentalist, Dr. Nana Ba-Redo, who has also joined us. So what I pick from what President Akufo-Addo said this morning is the fact that, yes, we understand that, I mean, climate change is, the effects are dire, but also we need the development in Africa because the developed worlds have used their own resources to get to where they are. And he talks about the fact that they emit more carbon dioxide, but we are at the losing side because it affects agriculture. It affects a lot of the things that we do in Africa. Yet we are being told that we should stop exploiting our own natural resources. How does all of these come across to you, Doc?
Well, you know, I'm very glad our president has made one of the most useful contributions to the discussion we are having in the world about where we are going with the climate change and these negative consequences of man's application of careless technology. It's careless technology applied in our haste to develop and the competition to develop beyond everybody else. You look at the climate change and whatnot. There are companies in the U.S., about 4 companies alone have about 4,000 aircraft, mid-range and long-distance planes that stay in the air 15 hours, using inefficient engines, spewing out all kinds of hazardous waste in their flight. We have, as the last speaker was talking about, in our case here, as the president said, we cannot delay our development. What we want to put in our development at this moment is the efficient application of technology to our development. And the efficient application of technology can come, especially for Ghana, which is in a very advantageous position, if we pay attention to the research going on in the universities in the area of science and technology. The research that will allow us to harness better technology to the development resources we have here. Ghana, of course, as it happens, look at the amount of coal that is put out of this earth. When U.S. was told to reduce the coal exploitation, the immediate past president said no, they would not, even though the environmentalists had demonstrated the highest negative consequences of using coal on human beings. He said, no, we're going to use it. The oil, whatnot. In Ghana here, we are very lucky that if we turn around, we may probably be the symbol of positive change in development. There are many who do not remember that the creation of the Volta Lake alone tampered with the excesses in our temperatures. Because when you have a huge expanse of water in a nation, that has a very positive effect on their temperatures. If we go on to what the last speaker was talking about, looking at the other options in energy production and energy use in industrialization, Ghana does not lack in that field. We have almost more than 12 hours of sunlight every day, given our geographical position.
It's renewable energy, right?
It is there, yes. It is. I mean, we have the sun everywhere. We can even store it. All what we have to do is to go back to the universities to ask them how we store the solar energy. We have it. And what is interesting about solar energy in Ghana is that almost all the ingredients that go into the production of solar energy are available in Ghana.
Right. So definitely we need to improve on our research to ensure that and find ways of making it work for us.
To what the universities can contribute to a development and go to them.
All right.
No nation would develop without the 3 areas of research, universities, and the public sector.
I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Nana Banredo is an environmentalist, and he's been sharing his experience on what's going on in Glasgow COP26 and the issues that are coming up. We'll take a break on the pulse. Remember, we're live from our studios, and you can join via all our social media handles at JoyNews on TV. You can tweet at us with the hashtag #ThePulse. When I return from that break, we'll be going to Parliament because a lot has been happening there. The National Security Minister has been addressing the House, and there's also a committee which is looking into the tussle between the police and Parliament. We'll also be talking about the management of the Ghana School of Law that says it is looking through the proposal to allow the law faculties to run a professional law course. Stay with me. I'm coming right back.